Donald Trump, who once played a hiring and firing guy on a reality TV show, empowered Elon Musk to take a chainsaw to the federal government. Well, now we're learning more about that so-called Department of Government Efficiency chainsaw under Donald Trump's poor management, specifically just how inefficient it was. A new report by Public Citizen finds the Trump administration has paid federal employees at least $11 billion and likely much more not to work. This total reflects only the lower end of estimated costs for the deferred resignation program inspired by Elon Musk in the Office of Personnel Management's infamous fork in the road email. The costs of this exercise in downsizing continue to mount and are replete with examples of poor planning, mismanagement, and financial inefficiencies and waste. The total costs of these terminations also include more than simply paying workers to stop working. They have had ripple effects throughout the government and on the American public. The utter incompetence of these mass firings by Donald Trump and Elon Musk, who seem to both lack the knowledge of what the federal workforce does and the attention span to carry out policy, led to chaos and underserved pain for those civil servants and their families. But ultimately, it also led to many of them having their terminations overturned later by the courts. And the report finds that at least 10 federal agencies actually rehired workers because the administration did not seem to understand the value or critical role of these employees in keeping the departments and offices they had worked for running. Trump and Musk's inept management had taxpayers paying for government services that were not being rendered because Trump and Musk sent those workers home. The report details what that $11 billion could have paid for, including $3.6 billion school lunches, a full year of daycare for more than 837,000 children, premium annual health care payments for 426,000 families, annual rent for 462,500 apartments, or annual in-state tuition for more than 928,000 students. Trump and Musk's ridiculous jaunt into the federal government cost Americans basic services that could have benefited them. A big waste of time and taxpayer money. That's the true cost of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Joining us now, Douglas Pasternak, Research Director of Public Citizen's Trump Accountability Project. Douglas, thank you very much for coming to The Last Word. Your report mentions that $11 billion is at the low end of the cost to taxpayers. Explain more about what your report found and how you were able to track and calculate all this.
Sure. All of these numbers come from the administration. We pulled them from the Office of Personnel Management, looking at their numbers that they had on one specific program, the Deferred Resignation Program. 140,000 federal workers took part in that program, and our analysis based on OPM's own data shows it cost the administration between $11 and $15 billion just to pay those workers to stay home. These are federal workers that worked for the government for decades, whether they're Republican or Democrat, they're nonpartisan individuals, they just wanted to work. And they weren't only told to stay home, they were forbidden from working, and not just for a couple of weeks, but for many, many months. And what I found really astounding in the end, which you mentioned, is how ineffective and inefficient this program was. And, you know, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. And almost a dozen agencies have had to rehire workers that they either fired or coerced to take part in this program. So you're talking about workers at the Social Security Administration, so you're not getting out retiree benefits on time. You're talking about workers at VA hospitals that serve 9 million veterans. So veterans can't get the critical medical care they need on time or mental health services. And you're also talking about a bunch of agencies with national security implications. The Department of Energy fired a bunch of people from the National Nuclear Security Agency energy. They maintain America's nuclear stockpile, something pretty important. So the Trump administration got rid of a bunch of folks and then realized, hey, maybe we should call them back because we actually need them. And more recently, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Administration put out an urgent call for more than 300 workers. They'd fired 1,000 last year. So it's really across the board. It touches every agency and it touches people all across the United States.
Douglas, in your report, correct me, your report says taxpayers are still paying for this mismanagement as the program is still in effect this year to enforce more layoffs.
So the one program we looked at, and there are several of these programs, we looked at the biggest one called the Deferred Resignation Program. That program basically allowed workers, if they were going to resign from federal service, to resign, but then take months of leave at home, getting paid for it, even though they wanted to work. That program had several key points. It started in February, the end of January 2025. So that was one window for workers to take part. Then they did called the Deferred Resignation Program 2.0 in April of last year. But this year, what we found is that agencies are offering a 3.0 program where they're encouraging workers to basically retire, but to stay home through September of this year getting paid. So the costs keep mounting. And one other thing that's really important, you know, people may look at this and they're like, well, you have fewer federal workers. Of course, that's going to save money. I compare it to going into a local hospital. Someone just walked into a hospital and wanted to cut staff. They wouldn't randomly cut 50% of the staff or 25% of the staff. GAO has done several reports on this program, and they found it was not strategic, it was not well thought out, and some of the programs did workforce analyses of the staff they needed after they fired everyone or pushed them into the resignation program. So it really is astounding. And one other key point, the Yale University, their budget lab, did an analysis last year, and they found that if 22% of IRS workers were fired or let go, it would actually lead to a loss of $200 billion in revenue for the United States over a 10-year period. The IRS has so far, the number is up to 28% of the staff have left. So you're looking just at the IRS, you know, where we're losing money by engaging in this program.
You know, Douglas, we've got less than a minute left, but I have to ask you, what was your reaction when you calculated the list of services that could have been paid for with all this money we've been talking about?
Well, it's a lot of money. And, you know, the point of what we put out is there were so many things this could have been spent on that would have been so useful and so helpful for so many people. And again, you know, in so many different areas. It could have paid for almost 1 million students their annual tuition for a year. It could have paid for the annual salaries of 150,000 public school teachers. You know, across the board, I think people would think that's pretty important. You know, again, it was not efficient. It was not strategic. It was inept. It was Trumpian mismanagement at its worst.
Public Citizen's Doug Pasternak, thank you very much for coming to The Last Word.
Thank you.